Stealing your younger colleague's business deal.
That was our department head, Gary, shouting. And jumping on the bandwagon was our promising newcomer from Harvard, Jack Johnson.
He snatched the contract.
Guess I'll quit then. Fed up with the horrible treatment and false accusations from the two of them, I said that and left the company. But the next day, Gary kept calling me nonstop. Ignoring his calls forever led to an unbelievable situation. My name is Scott Eastwood, and I'm 43 years old. I work as a salesperson at my current company, where I joined as a new graduate, and I hold the position of assistant manager. It's not the best position, but I'm satisfied. The income is enough to support my family, and the work environment isn't bad. I avoid conflict and tend to quickly follow instructions from others, which might be part of the reason. Most things become clear if you put yourself in someone else's shoes, and you can understand how to act yourself. It's better to focus on how the whole department can increase sales and improve things, rather than putting yourself in major conflicts. I've always done it this way and never had any big trouble, and I plan to continue like this. But recently, my smooth sailing life has started to show some clouds. The trigger was the arrival of a new graduate employee. His name is Jack Johnson, 22 years old, and a Harvard graduate. While many students take extra years, Jack graduated without repeating a single year, making him highly sought after during his job search.
Job hunting is surprisingly easy. I got many offers, but chose the easiest one.
After about 6 months on the job, Jack started to show his true colors. At first, he seemed like a good, impressionable young man, but lately, he acts like a typical modern young person. He avoids any tasks that require extra effort and leaves work on time no matter what happens. Even if his tasks are unfinished, he prioritizes his personal life and leaves the work to his colleagues. Since I was in charge of training Jack, his unfinished work often ended up with me. At first, I didn't mind much, but recently I felt I needed to address it and decided to talk to him. I understand that your personal life is important, but you need to finish your work properly.
Is this a lecture? I can do my job and I am working.
You're doing the work, but you're not meeting the deadlines I set. Indeed, Jack isn't completely shirking his duties. He doesn't play around during work hours, but he is simply slow. I've been assigning tasks according to his capabilities recently, but he still doesn't finish them. He probably thinks finishing about 80% is enough. As I reduced his workload, the amount of work he completed also decreased. It's okay now since you're new, but what will you do when you have to handle work alone?
It's fine. I'm a Harvard graduate, and I'm good at my job.
If you don't start doing it now, it won't matter. Your performance reviews will be affected. The moment I said that, Jack's carefree expression hardened.
Are you trying to lower my performance review?
It's not about lowering it. If things stay as they are, it will be low, and I can't send you to clients alone.
Oh, I see. Scott, that's the kind of person you are. I understand now.
With a meaningful expression, Jack returned to his desk. Since then, he's mostly ignored me when I tried to talk to him. Even if he did respond, it was with vague answers like, "Oh, okay, I got it." Feeling increasingly unable to handle it alone, I decided to consult with the department head. "Gary, can I talk to you about Jack for a bit?"
Sure. How about we go to a bar after work?
Gary Cooper, who became the sales department head a few years ago, is now 54. Sometimes he takes his subordinates out for a drink, listens to their concerns, and gives precise advice. He's a good boss.
So, what's going on with Jack?
After work that day, Gary and I went to a nearby sports bar. We ordered beer, potatoes, and chicken wings, and after toasting, we finally relaxed. It seems I'm not capable enough. He doesn't listen to me at all.
Is that so? I'm sorry, I haven't been paying enough attention.
No, I've been reducing his workload, but he still can't keep up. Then I unloaded all my accumulated complaints to Gary. Actually, I've been puzzled by something for a while now. It's Jack's attitude. While he disrespects me, he's polite to Gary and the other employees. He immediately starts any task they give him and has never missed a deadline. I've never seen him brag about his degree or claim that he's capable to anyone but me.
He doesn't say those things to me. Why does he only do that to you?
I think it's because I only graduated high school. Everyone else has a college degree.
That's true, but is that really a reason for such bad behavior?
Jack's attitude changed abruptly after I told him I only had a high school diploma. So, it seems like he looks down on me for my lower education level. I'd be surprised if there was any other reason. Even after telling Gary this, he couldn't imagine such behavior from the kind Jack he knew.
Well, I'll have a talk with him too. For now, let's just drink.
Thank you. That ended my consultation, and after that, we watched baseball on the bar's big screen and caught up with each other's lives. Going out for drinks with Gary made me feel refreshed.
It seems tough, so today's on me.
Oh, I feel bad, especially after you listened to my problems.
You've got the day off tomorrow, right? Use the money to take your wife on a date.
Gary really is a great guy. In the end, Gary treated me, and when I got home, I drank plenty of water to prepare for the next day's date.
It's been a while since we went on a date.
My wife Madeline said, looking very happy to be going out. That day went smoothly and ended happily, but the next day at work, I noticed a strange atmosphere. Gary, who usually greets me first, was glaring at me. Is he mad because I took the day off suddenly? No, but he didn't seem upset when he took me out for drinks. So why? While I was thinking about this, Gary called me over.
Scott, right after you arrive, we need to talk in a separate room. I'll go ahead, so follow me.
Yes, understood. Not knowing what was going on, I could only respond like that. I quickly put my stuff at my desk and headed to the designated room. From Gary's demeanor, it was clear he was angry. But I didn't know why. Being uncertain about the reason makes me this anxious. With heavy steps, I reached the room and grabbed the doorknob. Excuse me. I was sure I was going to talk to Gary alone. However, when I opened the door to the room, there was someone else there besides Gary. It was Jack.
Finally, you're here. Have a seat.
So what is this about today? Then Gary, who is usually kind, raised his voice.
Stealing your younger colleague's business deal.
Wait, hold on. What is this about?
I heard from Jack. He said you stole a business deal he arranged.
My mind was filled with question marks. I've never stolen anyone's business deal, and Jack isn't even at the level to go to business meetings alone yet. We talked about this before, right? Jack is not yet able to handle meetings with clients on his own.
That's just an excuse, isn't it? Didn't you just want to take credit for yourself?
Wait. I don't understand what's going on. I was flustered by these sudden false accusations. When I looked at Jack, he had a smug expression on his face. Did Jack tell Gary something? Jack is still at the stage where we ask him to do minor tasks.
That's not what I heard. He said he went to a meeting, got the contract, and then you took it from him.
Wait, I never heard that. Jack, why don't you say something? Jack kept looking at me with that creepy, smug grin. What did he tell Gary to make him this angry? I don't understand. I need to prove my innocence first. Which deal are you talking about? It should be easy to check.
The one with Smith Corporation that you brought in recently. I didn't realize it was Jack's.
No, it's not. I've been working on that deal for over a year. Smith Corporation is a significant player in the industry, and we hadn't been able to do business with them at all. Despite numerous calls, I couldn't get through to the person in charge and almost gave up. But then, I finally got to speak with the person in charge, and we arranged a meeting. Just recently, I completed the meeting and secured the contract.
I didn't think you were that kind of person. This damages your credibility.
If you say so, please check with the person in charge over there.
There's no need for that. Jack said you took it from him.
No matter how much I tried to explain to Gary, he wouldn't listen. He even rejected my suggestion to check with the client. This is clearly irrational. Why is he lying like this? Why don't you tell the truth? Feeling this would go nowhere, I asked Jack directly. I knew his answer would be the same.
He stole the contract.
Jack's words were exactly what I expected. To be accused of stealing, of all things, how much does he look down on me? And for Gary to support Jack's harsh words, something is definitely wrong. Maybe Gary's got some kind of weakness that Jack knows about. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. In any case, Jack and Gary have clearly become my enemies. All right, let's discuss this with Smith Corporation and the CO. That'll clear things up quickly.
Wait a minute. Let's not go that far. I just need you to cover for me, all right?
Cover for you? You want me to lie and say I stole Jack's contract? Gary nodded. Unbelievable. Gary knew Jack was lying and still treated me like this. I used to look up to Gary and wanted to be like him. I admired and respected him. Learning Gary's true nature was disheartening. I decided I no longer wanted to work under him. Before I knew it, I found myself saying, "Then I'll quit."
Wait. I didn't say you should quit.
Then what do you expect? I can't work with people who call me a liar. Gary seemed shocked that I would consider quitting.
Come on, we've worked hard together. Just overlook this one time.
Jack will keep doing this. Will you say the same thing every time?
Why are you being so stubborn?
Gary knew I avoided conflicts. So he probably thought he could smooth things over by talking to me. I didn't know why he was so keen on protecting Jack, but I no longer cared. I'm going to take this all the way. For some reason, I was filled with a fighting spirit. It was like all the times I avoided conflict were lies. I was determined to bring both of them down. I'll ask one last time, are you sure about this? Gary fell silent at my question. I'll take that as a yes. So Jack, you're not going to retract your lie?
Lie? I'm not lying. You're the liar here.
Got it. This conversation is over, right? I'll be leaving now. I glanced at Gary and left the room. After that, I continued my work as usual, but Gary looked awkward when he returned. Jack looked smug, but that wouldn't last long. I finished my remaining tasks, wrote my resignation letter, and handed it to Gary. Thank you for everything. I've prepared documents for the handover.
Are you really quitting? You can still change your mind.
Why? After being called a liar, don't make me laugh. Gary flinched at my words. No, it was probably my expression that shocked him. I couldn't see my own face, but I bet my eyes were pretty cold. Having successfully handed in my resignation letter, I started packing up my things to leave. But somehow, leaving like this didn't sit right with me. Since I was quitting anyway, I decided to let the employees know everything. I was falsely accused by Gary and Jack. Everyone, please be careful.
Hey, what are you talking about? You don't have to come in tomorrow.
Who said I stole a younger colleague's business deal? Anyway, it doesn't matter now. With that, I left the office, ignoring Gary's shouts behind me. As soon as I decided to quit, I felt a refreshing sense of relief. If you ask whether I regretted quitting on impulse, honestly, there were some regrets. But I'd rather take up a part-time job than work under such irrational people. When I got home, I explained the situation to my wife. I deeply apologized, but somehow she was angrier than I was.
You did the right thing quitting that company. I think you did great.
She praised me. I'll never forget the taste of the beer we drank together that night. The next day around noon, I checked my phone as soon as I woke up and saw tons of missed calls. The caller ID showed Gary's name. Even though he let me leave without fuss yesterday, maybe suddenly submitting my resignation caused problems. Thinking that, I called him back. After just one ring, Gary's voice came through the speaker.
Hey, it's a disaster. You need to come to the office right now.
Disaster? I submitted my resignation, didn't I?
What are you talking about? We've got a complaint from Smith Corporation saying the wrong person showed up.
Apparently, Jack had gone to the meeting with Smith Corporation by himself. Gary had seen through Jack's lies, but still thought he was competent. However, when Jack arrived at Smith Corporation, they called saying the representative was different and to fix it.
Just this once, could you please go to Smith Corporation right now?
But is it okay for someone who's no longer an employee to go?
This is an emergency. We can't worry about that now.
Gary's unreasonable request left me stunned. But then an idea came to mind. All right, I understand.
Really? Thank you. I'll treat you to a drink next time.
Gary hung up before hearing the rest of my response. As soon as the call ended, I muttered to myself. I never said I'd go to Smith Corporation. Gary had misunderstood my words. I said I understood, but I never agreed to go in person. All I needed to do was explain the situation to the representative at Smith Corporation. After a while, I called the representative at Smith Corporation. This is Scott Eastwood. I'm calling because I received a message from my former employer.
Scott, thank goodness. What is going on here?
I've already quit the company and no longer have any dealings with Smith Corporation. The representative sounded extremely surprised at my words.
Quit. This is the first I've heard of it. Can you explain what happened?
They're claiming that Jack arranged the contract with you and that I stole it.
Jack, he's here right now. But you're the one who secured the contract, right?
I was relieved to have someone who could vouch for me. Just knowing that lightened my heart considerably. I ended up looking like the bad guy, so I resigned yesterday.
I see. That must be tough, but I support you.
Thank you. Well, I'll be going now. Thank you for everything, even if it was brief. After hanging up, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had explained things to the representative at Smith Corporation, and I would no longer have to deal with Jack or Gary. I didn't know what I would do next, but I felt like I could manage. After all, for someone who has always avoided conflict, I had managed to stand up to those two. That alone made me feel like I had grown a lot. Fortunately, I had savings, so I could survive without a job for a while. I decided to take a break until I felt at peace. The next day, I received another call from Gary.
Hey, I told you to go to Smith Corporation yesterday. Why didn't you go?
As soon as I answered, Gary was yelling, "Even if you say that, I'm no longer obligated to follow your orders."
I've done so much for you. This is a disaster.
A disaster? What do you mean? Gary sounded even more desperate than yesterday. But there was a different tone to his voice this time.
Smith Corporation called and said they won't do business with us anymore.
Not at all in the future? Why is that?
How should I know? They also said they're canceling contracts with their subsidiaries.
Smith Corporation is a big company with several subsidiaries, all of which my former company had contracts with. So, canceling all those contracts would be a significant loss.
Anyway, I've been called in to explain to upper management. You need to come too.
Understood.
Finally, you get it. I'm counting on you this time.
With that, Gary hung up. But again, Gary misunderstood me. I only said, understood, not that I would go. Eventually, when I didn't show up, Gary got fed up and called again, but I didn't answer. In fact, I ignored all the calls from Gary that came later. Then, calls started coming from the company's number, but I ignored those too. That's because I had already spoken with the CEO. The representative from Smith Corporation will vouch for me. I don't plan to be involved anymore.
I see. I wasn't aware of this. I'm truly sorry.
No, I should have informed you earlier. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. The day I submitted my resignation, I called the CEO. Fortunately, he believed me and things went smoothly. Sometime later, I found a new job. It was tough since I was in my 40s, but I managed to get into a company I wanted. I was assigned to the sales department again, but this time, everyone was kind. Even to an old guy like me, they patiently taught me the ropes and never made unreasonable demands. Today, I'm scheduled to work in the office all day for some administrative tasks.
Scott, how about we go to that burger shop you mentioned today?
Sounds great. It should be less crowded at this hour on a weekday.
All right, I'll invite everyone else too.
Being in sales, we're not always in the office. But when we are, it's normal for us to go out for lunch together. I couldn't imagine this at my previous job, but this suits me much better.
There's no line, so we should be able to get in.
I took 3 of my colleagues to the burger shop. Despite having people inside, we were seated by the window. We ordered our favorite dishes and started chatting when I heard a familiar voice.
This is seriously the worst. I thought that old guy would be useful.
Are you talking about Gary? Didn't he support you because you promised to introduce him to a young woman?
Exactly. Can you believe a man in his 50s acting like that?
The voice from behind was Jack's. It seemed they were talking about Gary. Ignoring my colleague's conversation, I eavesdropped on the conversation behind me.
And didn't someone quit because of that?
Oh yeah, that dull old guy. If things had gone well, we could have landed a major contract.
Come on, just because he didn't go to college? That's harsh. You're pretty ruthless.
Jack was there with a friend, and it seemed they had talked about me and Gary before. My face must have looked severe while listening to their conversation. My colleagues looked at me with concern.
Are you all right? You look a bit pale.
Well, actually, I explained the situation. Unaware of the conversation behind me, my colleagues were shocked. What was even more surprising was that everyone got angry on my behalf. I had told them about my previous job.
This is unacceptable. I can't let this go without saying something.
I don't want to make a fuss.
That's not like you, Scott.
With that, one of my colleagues stood up abruptly.
Hey, you two, you'd better watch it or you'll regret it.
Huh? What are you talking about? Some weak old guy telling me what to do.
I heard you graduated from Harvard. Is that true? I went to Harvard too. What club were you in?
I could feel the atmosphere tense up immediately.
What's with the sudden questions? We're not the same age, so we wouldn't have overlapped.
I'm 25, so we might have. What club were you in?
Tennis club. We played casually and had lots of parties.
I watched as my colleague smiled knowingly.
Oh, really? I was in the tennis club too. Never heard of you, and I bet no one else has either.
What? You're lying about going to Harvard.
Oh, maybe it's you who's lying? If you are, that's fraud, and your company could sue you.
Suddenly, Jack started sweating profusely. Apparently, Jack hadn't quit after all. He was wearing a suit with his company ID badge from my previous workplace.
You know, it's easy to verify your education with the school. I should inform your company.
Please don't do that.
So you admit it. Now, apologize to him.
My colleague pointed at me. Jack, who hadn't noticed me until now, looked shocked.
Why are you here?
I heard everything. By the way, he's working at Smith Corporation now.
Smith Corporation? That's the place. I didn't get hired there.
This was news to me. Jack had applied to Smith Corporation as his first choice, but didn't get in. Knowing someone he had looked down on, was working, there must have been a shock. Sorry that a high school graduate is working at Smith Corporation, but work isn't all about education.
What are you talking about all of a sudden?
Work is about trust. You'll face more problems if you keep this up.
Shut up. Let's go.
Realizing he couldn't argue anymore, Jack left the shop with his friend, even though they were still eating.
Now that's the Scott I know.
No, I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you so much.
So, you're treating us, right, Scott?
What seemed like a resolution ended with me paying for lunch for all four of us. It was a pretty hefty expense, but I had no choice. Later, it was discovered that Jack had been backing Gary. Moreover, he let slip about his educational fraud, which led to an investigation. It's a pretty foolish story, but it was uncovered during a phone call with a friend about his educational fraud. The investigation confirmed Jack's academic credentials were falsified. It turned out his highest education was the same as mine, a high school diploma. After several discussions within the company, Jack was eventually fired. Apparently, the higher-ups were furious with Jack over the incident where all of Smith Corporation's subsidiaries canceled their contracts. The higher-ups knew Jack had taken credit for my work. However, it's not easy to fire an employee outright. Had I spoken up at the time, Jack might have been fired earlier. But because I resigned so easily, the higher-ups couldn't act against Jack. Jack's initial punishment was just a temporary pay cut. But educational fraud is a serious crime. Even the higher-ups couldn't ignore that and took the matter to court. The court ruled against Jack. An educational fraud can result in up to 2 years in prison or a fine of up to $3,000. Though $3,000 might be manageable, Jack couldn't pay it. Despite working for almost a year, he had no savings. Moreover, his actions were so severe that even his parents, relatives, and friends abandoned him. Unable to borrow money from anyone, Jack was sentenced to up to 2 years in prison. Jack had a girlfriend and was planning to marry, but they drifted apart due to this incident, and their relationship eventually ended. After serving his time, Jack tried to contact his ex-girlfriend, but found she had moved and left no forwarding address. Now, Jack lives alone in a rundown apartment, working multiple part-time jobs. As for Gary, although I don't care about him anymore because I've already quit the company, it was revealed that he had been influenced by Jack to make unreasonable demands on me. Gary was fired at the same time as Jack. Gary had a wife and a child, but they left him after the incident. "If you prefer young women, then divorce me," his wife said, and left with their child. Now, Gary lives alone in a big house with a fully paid mortgage. He started working at a nearby corner store, but there are constant complaints from customers. Rumor has it that he might be fired soon. Recently, his memory has been deteriorating, and relatives are suggesting he should be placed in a care facility. I learned about their fates from friends, relatives, and former colleagues. But none of it matters to me now. Since then, my life has been smooth sailing. I've been working at Smith Corporation for 6 years now and am approaching 50. Looking back, I've realized that people don't change easily. That's why I'm glad I experienced the big event of quitting my job. If that hadn't happened, I would still be working at that company. Without Jack and Gary, my life would have been secure. But I've learned a lot since coming to Smith Corporation. And most of all, I'm really happy that I can leave work on time at Smith Corporation. Today, I'm planning to finish work on time and have dinner with my wife at a restaurant.
You were always wonderful, but lately, you look so vibrant and really handsome.
My wife said these words when we met in front of the restaurant. You look really beautiful too.
Don't say things you're not used to, but thank you. It makes me really happy.
I'm not used to this kind of atmosphere, but it seemed to please my wife. Honestly, I've been able to endure because of her. From now on, I plan to repay my wife and colleagues for all they've done.